Ladies and gentlemen, it is officially the final week of the college football regular season as we welcome you into All-American here from Studio A alongside reporter extraordinaire Maria Trivelpeice. She was on the call for volleyball action last week. She moves back to the gridiron this week and still finds time and carves it out of her schedule to be here and talk on All-American with you all. I'm Kyle Youmans. So glad you're with us, and we've got plenty to talk about because final week of the regular season is here, Maria. It is do or die for multiple teams, but really the conference, and there are a lot of scenarios still up in the air as well.
Yeah, we know the two teams that are in our conference championship game. It's Army, it's Tulane, but where it's going to be, that's still TBD, to be determined.
I love it. I love how there's like chaos, calamity, all the way up until the final week of the regular season. Here are some of the scenarios that it could be in terms of the hosting moving forward. If Tulane wins, they hold their own destiny in the palm of their hands. However, they play a really good Memphis team coming up this week, actually preseason favorites in the American Athletic Conference. If they win, they will host at Yulman Stadium down in New Orleans. If Tulane loses, Army wins, you got to have both results, then that means Army would host up in West Point, New York at Michie Stadium. And if they both lose, the computers decide. And then you talk about chaos. Oof. Computers equal chaos. I think Tulane has the edge in terms of the numbers right now, but really, who knows at that point? It's going to come down to metrics. It comes down to analytics. And by that point, we may be flipping a coin to see, are we going to New York or are we going to New Orleans?
I want to know where the angry tweets go if the computers decide. Like, who are they going to tweet at? Do the computers have a social media account that they control? Or that's my biggest question.
It's not like the College Football Playoff Committee where they're all individual people.
Yeah, no, this is computers.
This is computers.
Maybe we should create a computer account just so everybody can vent as to where that happens. All right.
Give an outlet for them to have it.
Because I'd want to vent too. Like if it was like my team, I'd want to vent. Like computers angry, yes.
Yeah.
But
and you can post a link there that says you can vent here. Post a link, and it's just right back here to All American, and they can just watch the podcast episodes.
That's perfect. So they'll know exactly where it is.
100%.
Perfect. Well, we do know, the one thing that we do know is going to be Army and Tulane. So we have to talk about both of those teams this week. And we'll start off with Army. Played Notre Dame this week. Not the best showing for the Black Knights, but I think what I learned is that Notre Dame's a really good football team.
Yeah, I think the 49-14 was the final score up at Yankee Stadium. Awesome environment, really cool. National television, great spotlight for Army as a program. Notre Dame, number 6 team in the country, and they've been rolling since that loss to NIU early in the year. And they haven't just been beating teams like Army. They've been beating everybody by multiple scores. And kind of like what you said, a loss like this tells me more about Notre Dame as a football team as opposed to what it tells me about Army. The defense did what they could early, held them in check for the first couple quarters, brought it back within 7. I thought that was a great touchdown drive to make it 14-7. At least take the counter punch element and at least put some fight there. Bryson Daly still ran the football effectively. It just wasn't the same Army team we've seen through the first 9 games of the season.
But I don't even think it's not that it wasn't the same Army team. I just think Notre Dame was really good.
Yeah.
Like, I think that Bryson Daly still did everything that he normally does. I thought they still had those long drives where they had the ball for long periods of time. It was just when Notre Dame got the ball, they capitalized on it immediately. So I think that it says basically back to what you said, less about Army, and it says more about the quality of Notre Dame as a football program. And now Army will have UTSA. They need to win that game, as we already talked about, to be able to host the American Conference Championship game. When you look at that matchup, this isn't as easy, quote unquote, of a matchup. If you would have asked me about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I'd be like, okay, Army's got it. It's fine. Owen McCown's playing really good football. We talked to him last week. And how about the run game, too, for UTSA? They looked really good.
Yeah, back-to-back 300, not 100 or 200-yard rushing games. Back-to-back 300-yard rushing games against North Texas and then against Temple last week. Yeah, the defense for Army has been great all year long at stopping the run, except for against Notre Dame. Jeremiah Love, who's one of the best tailbacks in the country, I would put him up there with Ashton Jeanty. I would put him up there with Mekhi Hughes from Tulane, who we'll talk about here in a little bit as well. Both of those guys are phenomenal runners. Jeremiah Love is up there, and that's who really did most of the damage for Notre Dame. UTSA does it with a committee. They run the football across the board very well. Even Owen McCown got in on the action against Temple this past weekend, taking off down the right sideline. How rude of him to interrupt the athletic director who was on the call and having an interview in the booth from Temple. The Temple Owls athletic director is up there talking to the broadcast team, and Owen McCown says, forget that. I'm going to run this to the house. And so he gets cut off in the middle of it. It was really kind of a funny moment. But the fact of the matter is, Army has to be better this week than they were last week. The front seven's been tremendous all year long. I've been very high in my praise with Army's defense, and a lot of it stems from stopping the run. They're one of the best run defenses in college football, maybe because they practice against that rushing attack and practice every single week, which is one of the top in the college football ranks as well. You got to have some better success against the Roadrunners if you hope to turn things around and put that Notre Dame game behind you.
And you know, we've seen Owen McCown have the ability to throw the ball as well. You talk about it. He's been really good.
Yeah.
That's the main thing that we've talked about with him. Mentioning that run is just another element to his game. But I think with Army, this is a game to kind of get back on track. You utilize this to prove to yourself, look, we're still a very good football team. Lean on what you've been doing all season, and it's almost like a preparation for that championship game, but it's one that you don't want to look past.
You're right. And I think, like you said, preparation for the championship game, it's also, you don't want to lose your first 2 games of the year going into the 2 most important games of the year. You don't want to have that in the back of your mind going into the championship game on Friday, and then the next week after that, Army-Navy. I mean, those are in the minds of the Army Black Knights. Those are the 2 most important games of the entire calendar year. You won your first 9 games, but if you lose those last 2, it does not put you in a favorable position going into the final 2. So this game holds a lot of weight for Army going into it than a lot more than it would have if you would have either played Notre Dame close or if you would have beaten Notre Dame, if that would have been the case. Not the case. Now you got blown out by Notre Dame. You've got a chance to try and rectify it against UTSA, who's been playing really, really good football. This is an important game for the Army's psyche going into that championship matchup with Tulane.
And how, in your opinion, do they beat UTSA in this matchup?
You gotta have run defense. You gotta find a way to stop the run. Going into this matchup that it's almost playing with house money too. You're not going to the college football playoff. You've lost that edge to your team. I think there's a little bit that could happen. It'd have to be calamity in front of them as well to even be back in the mix. But when you lose to a team that will go to the college football playoff and Notre Dame like that, I don't know if you'll get the benefit of the doubt in that regard. You just got to stop the run, slow down Owen McCown, limit him, which they've done to good offenses. Look at what they did against North Texas, holding them to 3. North Texas hasn't been right since that point offensively. So they can do it. They just got to get back to being themselves and out-physical the UTSA front.
And let's talk a little bit about that UTSA front and that entire team. They looked great against Temple, as you already mentioned. And how about that graphic, too? I think playing off Wicked. Wicked came out this weekend. I like it. You said you had a better idea, though, for it.
Yeah, I think you're off to see the runners, the wonderful runners of San Antonio.
Of San Antonio.
I mean, that's what I would say. No, I think this is a great graphic, and of course, there's a lot of Wicked madness going on, and I mean, it's a great movie.
Did you see it yet?
I have not seen it.
Me either. I want to watch it.
I've heard it's fantastic.
I heard it's good too.
The cast is incredible, but
Yeah,
the cast
right?
from UTSA has been incredible the last couple of weeks as well. Became bowl eligible, 5th straight season under Jeff Traylor, school record tying 10th win in a row at the Alamo Dome. We've talked about their prowess at home. I don't know what the secret sauce is. I really don't. But they're 29-3 at home. Now, they were the better team than Temple. I think we could have anticipated that going into it. But back-to-back Friday games, and they've got guys like Jamori Robinson stepping up with a couple of sacks. Zay Frazier, had 2 interceptions. 3rd time this year. They've piled up over 500 yards of total offense. I loved what they were able to do on both sides of the football. It was a dominating win all the way through.
Yep, we already touched on it a little bit, just some of those, the rushing attack, the way that's dominated, the way that Owen McCown has played. You even mentioned the defense. There was one instance in this game where you thought maybe Temple could poke something
Yeah.
through early, but then they just came back and were so dominant offensively. And so I think they're playing some of their best football. The key here, though, is they have to travel to West Point as opposed to being home in the Alamo Dome.
Yeah, they don't get that friendly confines. They got to go into a road environment where they've been hit or miss on the road. They've won some road games, but just not as much as they have at home. What do you think is the key for UTSA to defeat Army on the road and kind of play spoiler down the stretch for the Black Knights?
Yeah, I think that they need to continue to play the way that they've been playing and use some of that momentum. But I think in the opportunities that they have to score, they have to capitalize on them. One thing that we've talked about all year is just the way that Army dominates time of possession, right? So when you have an opportunity, when you have the ball, that's what Notre Dame did. They scored when they had the ball. And then you have to stop Bryson Daly. I think that's my key for every team that plays Army because he just generates so much offense. And so they're simple keys, but that's kind of what I'm looking for the Roadrunners to do if they want to play spoiler a little bit against this Black Knights team.
My question to you, and they ran for 309 yards against Temple. They ran for 300 plus against North Texas, the running Roadrunners, right? Can you outrush Army? Can you beat them at your own game? Because they've had 2 straight 300-yard rushing performances. Who's to say they won't try and do that again? That's been the benefit from them. Now, Owen McCown has been uber efficient. He's been probably the best quarterback. Actually, you know what? I'll say it. He's been the best quarterback in the conference over the last 5 games. And that even goes back to when they lost in the come-from-behind fashion against Tulsa earlier in the campaign. That was a road game, too, just to keep note. I think their defense, as in terms of UTSA, will struggle to slow down the run game and Bryson Daly, like you said. That's a key. It's easier said than done. That's going to be tough for the Roadrunners defensively. But can they outrush the rushing leaders in Army? Because I think that's going to be the key to end up winning this game.
I think it's less about can they outrush them, but can they utilize different components of their offense. So
Okay.
I want to see them let Owen McCown throw the ball more because I think
They've got
that
some weapons outside.
I agree with that. And
I
so
like their tight end room a lot. I like
Yes.
some of their tight ends, especially in the red zone.
No, exactly. And so I think that I wouldn't try to when you're going up against somebody who plays a similar style game as you. If you don't have as much confidence in your run game, which, again, their run game has been very good the last couple of weeks, but I would mix it up is my ultimate point. I'm not solely relying on my run offense. I'm relying on Owen McCown as well. So I think if they can mix that in, that would give them a better chance than just going run, because we've seen how Army's defense can stop the run.
So you're going balanced attack.
Balanced attack all
the way through.
All the way.
I like it. All right, what about Tulane? We talked about Army. We talked about their preview of their matchup. Tulane's got a tough one this week against Memphis as well. This is going to be a fun matchup. Probably one of my top games of the year, and that was going into the calendar. It's even lived up to the hype because you've got Tulane. There were a lot of people that thought this would be a back-to-back possibility, that these two would meet in Week 14 and then could possibly play in the title game 1 week later. What do you think about this matchup as a whole?
Well, I think despite the record and them dropping the few games that they did, I think Memphis is one of the best teams in the conference. And so I think that this is a tough test for Tulane. I now they're coming off a win against Navy where they shut Navy out. They had a bye.
Win.
So Tulane is in such a great position right now. They've had a week to rest some of their players. I think that it's still going to be one of the best matchups conference-wise that we're going to see this year because I just think that Seth Hennigan and that offense is really good, but the Tulane defense is something that we have just harped on the entire season for good reason.
Yeah, this is the most consistent offense in the conference. Maybe not the best offense and highest scoring offense or whatever the numbers end up indicating, but in terms of Memphis, they are super talented. Mario Anderson Jr. is one of the best runners in the conference and in the league as well. And then you've got Seth Hennigan, who's the most experienced quarterback in Memphis program history and American Conference history as well. I mean, you've got 2 really, really good players up there at the top. Can this defense, who's been so stout all year long and shut out a team like Navy, who we were talking about Blake Horvath in the same breath as these guys earlier, shut them out a couple weeks ago, got into a bye week, get healthy. We talked about it last week on the show. Crucial to get healthy going into back-to-back barn burners against Memphis and Army. This is going to be a wild one. I think this is you better believe that if both teams coming off of a bye have something to prove, this is going to come down to the quarterbacks for me. I think Daria Mensah what he's done as a freshman, the experience of Seth Hennigan, what he's done throughout his entire career in Memphis, it's going to come down to those two guys. And I think Memphis has the edge in that regard.
Well, you have the experience, right, on the Memphis side. And I think, though, on the flip side, one thing that Tulane has that Memphis doesn't have is that motivation for that college football playoff. Because with the way everything imploded this past week, I think that sets up Tulane for a really good chance. If they beat Memphis, they go to the championship game and they beat Army, those are two quality wins that they now can position themselves in a good spot. But I think
the Big 12 helped them out. And then
yes, they did.
The Big 12 helped them out a little bit. Thanks, Kansas, on what they did to Colorado, and then Arizona State to BYU. But also, you've got other conferences that are kind of pitter-pattering down the stretch as well. The ACC, they've got SMU going to the title game in the ACC. Things could get crazy in that conference as well, because if Miami and SMU slip up, and then all of a sudden things could get wild down the stretch there too. Tulane's waiting in the wings currently. For
sure. And you know, you mentioned Seth Hennigan and that skill battle between the quarterbacks, right? So that's one thing. But I'm always looking at what is the motivation behind each team's will to win? What's the mentality going into this? And I think Memphis has good motivation, and they want to ruin somebody's season, right? So I think that there's a lot of that there. But I think if you're Tulane, you're taking everything game by game. We'll go right into coach speak. Coach speak. Game by game, and this is a big game for them to win. This actually helps them. I think they're going to attack this like none other.
I love that it's on Thanksgiving, by the way, too. I think
we're very grateful and thankful that this game is happening on
It's going to be a feast of talent across the board. I love what how you outlined it at the end there. You talked about the motivation of Tulane to get to the college football playoff. That's one sort of motivation, but angry motivation works too. And Memphis is upset that they aren't in that same position.
Yep.
And it's by their own fault. They lost to Navy. They lost later in the season as well. What was their second loss? They lost to UTSA at 44-36. So not back-to-back losses, but two losses that they probably felt like shouldn't have happened. Well, now they've got a chance to get one back. And they're going to be firing on all cylinders. We've talked to both Mario Anderson Jr. and Seth Hennigan on this show. I'm sure Ryan Silverfield is going to have them ready to go in a holiday matchup against a team that they would love nothing more than to knock off and knock them off their path to the playoff.
I see a lot of pettiness in this one. I think I'm getting excited about it. But, you mentioned teams.
Is this Maria's petty matchup of the week?
Ooh, yes. We should start making that a thing. We need a graphic and everything.
It just became a thing.
All right, Maria's petty matchup of the week, Tulane and Memphis. We're going to be locked in on Thanksgiving Day. I am grateful, thankful for the feast of that football game. But, Kyle, you mentioned teams firing on all cylinders. Another team firing on all cylinders is East Carolina.
East Carolina. What else can you say about the resilience and the turnaround that Blake Harrell has illustrated with the ECU Pirates? It was all kind of brought together in a microcosm of a game. Kind of felt like their season as a whole on the road against North Texas at DAC Stadium had some things working early. They were moving the ball effectively. A couple of turnovers helped North Texas jump out to a 21-0 lead most of the way through the second quarter. What did ECU do? They didn't panic. They stuck to their guns. They continued to run the football effectively, and they scored on 6 consecutive possessions to storm back from 21-0 down and win it with a 40-burger, 40-28 on the road. Not only securing that bowl berth that we talked about last week and just taking it a step further, but really solidifying what a lot of people around the ECU program are saying right now, and that Blake Harrell needs to have the interim tag removed going into this week.
Well, just look at the way that they've performed underneath him, right? They've just win. And it's never pretty. That's one thing that I'll say. They just find ways to come out on top, though, because, as you said, they're down 21-0, and they just find ways to scrap back in. And I think that says a lot about the coach that you're playing for, because usually when teams get down, if you don't like that person in charge, you're just like, all right, we're done. Like, when can I get on the bus to go back home?
You lose the locker room and things go south from there.
Yes, but if you have a coach that can get players to run through a brick wall for him when they're down 21-0 and find ways to fight back, that's the person that you want in charge of your program, right? So I think that's why a lot of people are calling for it. And I think with his resume, since he's had that interim tag on, he has a good argument. And
he was also the most experienced guy on the coaching staff too. 5 years with the pesky Pirates. I love that.
I love that. First of all, I love alliteration. Pesky. So it kind of sounds like petty, but
it's not the same thing. 500 total yards for the fourth straight game. We talked about this offense earlier in the campaign, but it was really centered around John David Baker, who is still the offensive coordinator and play caller, by the way, and their quarterback at the time, which was Garcia. Now it's Caden Hauser, and you've got the Smith boys, Yannick and Anthony, that had phenomenal games, and then also the ground game as well. I mean, you continue to run the football effectively. They've got all the momentum going into this matchup against Navy this week. Is there a chance for ECU to continue rolling underneath Blake Harrell and knock off Navy, who hasn't had the best ending to the season in the last couple of weeks?
It depends what Navy team shows up, and that's how I'm going to present it, because we saw Blake Horvath get hurt in that game against Tulane. He had to leave. So is he able to come back? If he's able to come back,
big factor.
That's a huge factor. But not only just with, because even games with Blake Horvath, there have been times when ever since Navy lost to Notre Dame, they just don't look like that team that we saw at the beginning of the season. And it has nothing to do with the opponent that they're playing, because we've seen them beat good teams. Ever since they lost to Notre Dame, it looked a little different. Now, if they come out with that team that is clean, that doesn't turn the ball over, that just operates under Blake Horvath, they have the defense as well, I think that team beats East Carolina. But if that team isn't there and the pesky Pirates keep pushing through 21-0 deficits and they have just some small plays, some hustle plays, then it's a different game. And so if I had to pick, I couldn't pick right now. I know you'll make your picks later, but I don't have a pick right now because I need to see which Navy team shows up. If it's the Navy team that's been able to beat big teams, that looks really confident, like behind Blake Horvath, then I like that team. But even with that team, like the way that ECU just hangs around with people, I think that's something. There's something to be said about that.
No doubt, and they won't give up a big lead to Navy. I don't think that happens. It'll stay within striking distance all the way through to the very end. I agree with you. I don't know if I can make a pick here, but Navy just hasn't looked the same since that Notre Dame game. Yeah. Whether they're banged up or the confidence was shot. I mean, they looked good against South Florida, 28-7. That was in week 11.
All the weeks are running together.
Yeah,
at this
week
point.
11. They've lost 3 of their last 4, and they haven't looked like the same Navy team early. So why not the Pirates? Why not see something crazy happen? One team's playing well, the other one is not. We'll see if that continues going into the weekend. What should be a fun game overall.
I'm really looking forward to that one. That's another game that I'm keeping my eye on because Navy is such a good football team. Mm-hmm. I want to see them play to that level. And East Carolina, I just love the fight that they're showing. So it's like, what's the thing that Tim Pernetti always says? The lunch bucket mentality. There's
lunch pail mentality.
Yeah, no participation trophies.
Blue
like
collar.
That. That's what that matchup's going to be. You have the midshipmen of Navy and the East Carolina Pirates.
Better show up ready to work. I love it.
Yes. Good. Another team that we want to see show up ready to work. Well, maybe you do because it's your alma mater. Is North Texas, but they just haven't been able to the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it started 5-1. And we were talking about it on this show. There were a couple things that went wrong, a lot of things that went wrong against East Carolina. They couldn't protect Chandler Morris. The offensive line, not very good up front. They were missing some key pieces. A couple of guys that weren't able to play this past week. It showed. And it showed it more and more as they went along. They had those early turnovers, took that 21-0 lead, but from that point forward, ECU dominated the line of scrimmage, both lines of scrimmage, offensive line and the defensive line. They couldn't run the ball on offense. And we've known this throughout the year. They're missing their top 3 running backs. Shane Porter was moved from wide receiver to running back in order to even make the depth chart available. He and Mackenzie McGill are the 2 lead backs for North Texas. They couldn't stop the run on defense. We talked about what they did with Davis and company, just running all over North Texas, and then those 6 straight possessions. By that point, it was out of reach, and you were trying too much to try and piece it together. Here's the thing. 2 weeks ago, Maria Trivelpeice, I said the next 3 games will define the season for the North Texas Mean Green. Well, here we are. We're 2 games into those 3, and they are 0-2. Not great. If they were 3-0, it would have been a program-changing year for Eric Morris. Not the case. 2-1 would have been a great year. They would have had 7 wins. Moving on.
That's a lot of math, but I think you're right.
It would be 7 wins. Moving on, you go to a better bowl game. Not there either. But at 1-2, you still get to a bowl game, which is better than you were last year. So you're still better, and you make an improvement. 0-3, there's going to be some tough conversations around that program. It's tough. Yeah. There already has been tough conversations around that program. So what will it be? You're playing on the road. You don't get a home game anymore. Senior day's in the rearview mirror. You get one shot at this thing. On the road at the Lincoln Financial Field up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
It's going to be cold.
Going to be cold.
Wear my layers.
Yeah, we'll see what the weather looks like. Temple is a winnable game for North Texas. They've played some tough competition recently. ECU was winnable. Didn't win it. Temple is also winnable. They've got to win this week or else it's going to get tough for North Texas to watch. And it already has been. I know there's a lot of frustration within that fan base losing 5 straight games, but it has been – it's a must-win. This is a must-win, not only for a bowl game, but for the confidence as a program moving into next year.
And how do they win?
They've got to get – it's almost all the factors that I just outlined. You got to protect Chandler Morris. You got to be able to run the football effectively. You got to allow for him to make plays. He's the best player on your offensive side of the football. You got some good receivers out there, too. Really like what Conright's done. He's grown a lot this year. I like what Damon Ward Jr. has done throughout his career. North Texas going into his final couple games. I think you just got to protect your quarterback. Let him share the rock and let Eric Morris's very deep offensive playbook continue to work its magic because right now they are so banged up front that it's going to be tough to piece it together, but it's possible. They can do it.
All right, well, we'll see how the Mean Green fares against the Owls this weekend. One team that fared quite well this weekend was the South Florida Bulls, coming up with a big win against Tulsa, 63-30. Kyle, Bryce Archie.
Burger.
That's a lot of points from my calculations. Bryce Archie finally threw the football well. Not finally, that sounds bad, but he's
been throwing the football pretty well.
He has been throwing the football pretty well, but finally stepping into who Alex Golesh knew that he could be. I think that's one thing that Golesh talked about it early in the season when Byron Brown went down and Archie had to step into that role. He was waiting for Archie to kind of just settle in and get that confidence, and you saw it this past weekend. 21 of 31, 305 yards for Archie.
Well, and they had 28 unanswered points in the first quarter. They were up 42-7 at halftime. They had the ground game going early. Kelly Joyner Jr., 10 carries, $131 on the ground, 2 touchdowns. Turnovers breed points, and they dominated after the turnovers happened. I thought even probably my favorite play, and it's not in top plays. I'll spoil it right now. It's not in top plays, but maybe my favorite play of the entire weekend was the chase down that James Chenault had on defense. Tulsa was on a breakaway as the final seconds of the first quarter. Breakaway speed all the way down. He absolutely flies all-out effort to the back of his heel, makes a shoestring tackle at the goal line, brings the guy down at the 1. Tulsa is knocking on the door to score. They don't. They don't end up scoring on that drive. It ends up in a goal line stand. That doesn't happen without the effort of Chenault and what he was able to do to track down Tulsa. Because of that, that's what you get when you play an Alex Golesh team. I think he's instilled that we're never going to quit mentality, and that's why they're bowl bound. Without their top quarterback from Byron Brown early in the year, you find a rhythm and a developmental project in Archie, who's taken a step forward. I'm very impressed with South Florida across the board. Put up 715 yards of offense in any game is impressive, but to do it with the guys that are available and week in, week out, they've just played better and better as the season has gone on. That's a sign of good coaching.
I 100% agree. And I think when you looked at the way that this season started, they lost a tough one to Miami. They were in that game with Alabama.
Sure.
I thought that they had a chance to win that one. So you take some of those difficult losses earlier in the year. A lot of teams just quit after that. And the Bulls didn't. They kept fighting back. They won the games that they were supposed to. And now that offense, as you see, is just starting to click. Archie's really good. Joyner Jr. is really good. and it's coming together. And I think that's why, for the first time since 2018 and 19, they're bowl bound in back-to-back years.
Yeah, and they've earned this. Credit to the coaching staff. Keep on motivating. Keep on drawing up a legitimate scheme and a legitimate game plan. And credit to the players and guys like Bryce Archie of responding, too. I think both of those deserve a ton of credit. I mean, it's been fun to watch this Bulls team continue to elevate. Now, they've got a matchup with Rice this week. What are you seeing going into this one?
They just need to keep playing the same offense that
Same
they've
thing,
had.
right?
Yeah. Rice has struggled in their last matchup, and so I think that South Florida's peaking at the right time, right? And they ended up winning that bowl game last year. So I think with the way that their season started was maybe a little bit disappointing. I'm sure South Florida fans were not happy, but they kind of pushed through it. And so I like where they are right now. Keep doing that, and they'll be good against the Owls.
Yeah, 7 wins last year after the 1-win 2022 season. Alex Golish is showing he's one of the more underrated coaches in all of collegiate football. I think 100% he needs to be in the conversation as an underrated coach. Now, bowl teams. We're getting close here, Maria. I just went on a rant about North Texas a little bit ago, but there are 7 teams that will make a bowl this year. Got teams like the expecteds, the ones we thought would be in this conversation: Memphis, Tulane, Army, UTSA late, just because they didn't start the season great. But you got the unexpected, too. South Florida being one of them because of the start that they had. Navy, they have their first bowl appearance since 2019, which I love.
I love that for the midshipmen. Let's
ECU
go.
fired their coach, and they're in a bowl game. They've got 7 wins, a chance for 8 wins this season.
You were right about that. We showed it on last week's show, but I'm going to give you credit again because you called that, and I did not see that one.
It's a good football team.
It is. They're playing really well. They're playing really well.
And their film shows it. North Texas can be the 8th team for the American to be bowl bound if they defeat Temple this week. Out of these teams, Maria, which one do you feel like is the most impressive and the most surprising? 2 different answers, or it could be the same answer.
Oh, that's tough. I mean, I think the really cool thing for me is the fact that this is Army's first year in the American, and they're going to be in our championship game. They're also bowl bound, and I think that's really exciting. But I think when I talk about the most this is hard. You're putting me on the spot here. But I do think the most surprising for me probably is East Carolina because I just didn't see it at that point in the season. That loss to Charlotte I was out on the Pirates. So I apologize to East Carolina because you have been playing fantastic and Kyle was right. But yeah, no, I'm just really I'm excited to watch all of our teams play in the bowl games, and I'm really excited for that championship matchup.
No doubt about it. It's going to be a whole lot of fun in the postseason. But before the postseason is even here, Maria, we have one more week of regular season college football inside the American. Everyone, yes, everyone is in action. Final chance to show out. Pride is on the line this week. Even for those without postseason hope, it is a chance. Final opportunity. A lot of players going to play their final game. Final game. It's always a bittersweet moment that the student athletes will see their careers come to a close, but they'll do so with pride and their teams on the line over the next couple of weeks. Which one are you looking at on this first page?
Well, I'm going to be on the call for North Texas Temple, so I'll be there. I'll be watching that one.
Little bias there,
A little bit more intense there. I like all of these matchups. Obviously, they're all on not all on different days, but different days. So you have a Thursday matchup, a Friday matchup, Saturday matchup. I think I'm going to be on the call for the other one. So let me watching all of them. I'm locked in. I'm giving you the coach speak answer in the broadcaster version.
Very broadcaster-y speak answer.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have to give that. And I'm looking at all of these games across the board, but really I'm looking at that final matchup. I don't know why. I want to see who wins Florida Atlantic and Tulsa. Ooh. I talked about pride being on the line. Neither one of those teams are going to a bowl game. Neither one of those teams have their head coach this year and are still trying to figure out who their head coach will be for next year. So I think if Florida Atlantic is 0-7 in conference play, can they get their first win? Tulsa's had probably the most memorable win of the year, the come-from-behind victory where they were down 42-7. I can't remember exactly.
They were
the
down
number.
by a lot, and then they won.
Yeah, against UTSA.
Summary.
So they won 46-45. I know that. It was 42-7 in the third quarter to UTSA, and they came back and won. So Florida Atlantic trying to find their first win. Tulsa's trying to find some sort of life at the end of the season. I'm going to watch that game. I'm excited to watch that one hang out in the last part of the regular season. But that's going to do it for the football slate of things. You know what else we got before the end of the regular season?
Top plays.
Top plays, baby. Top plays. What do we got at number 5, Maria?
Ooh, we're going to Temple, where I will be this weekend, but we're starting with women's basketball.
Oh.
So
curveball.
I like this because her last name is Tiara East, but she goes coast to coast with the contact, puts it up off the glass, gets an and one. I just love the toughness of it. That's what I like about it. Look at this. Contact, falls to the floor, still makes the bucket.
Oh, I like that. East to west, coast
to coast.
East gets it done. Temple's playing some good basketball right now. I like it. Speaking of good sporting, let's go to ECU, North Texas. This play, depending on which side you're on, was excruciating to watch on one side, and probably the coolest play you'll see in a long time. How about the streak from Davis to break 3? Rajai Davis goes all the way to the house after, and then he gets to hang out with Petey the Pirate at the end of this thing too. How about it? I don't know how, there was a whistle not blown here, and the reason why is because the legs of Harris just kept churning, going, and then he gets to the house. That's a one-man band, one-man wrecking crew that ECU showed there, and it was just a microcosm of what they did all weekend long.
I don't know how Rajai Harris just got through all of those bodies. It was insane.
Right there, he should be down.
I'm
but
like,
he's
I
not.
I was like, there's humans there, and I'm like, there's another human, and there he goes. I'm like,
There's another human.
I was like, where's he going? Speaking about, I'm making myself laugh, but we want to talk about some more interesting plays. Let's head over to the basketball court. This one coming down to the final seconds. It's South Florida and Wright State. Wright State takes the lead. There's 6.8 seconds left on the clock. Jaden Reed's going to get the ball. He dribbles all the way down the court, Kyle, with seconds left. Nails it.
Wow.
Bulls win.
That's not even a good look. I mean, that's from the baseline. He was trying to get to the short corner, get around the defender. Wright State did a great job there of defending the baseline, not allowing for that to be an extra lane for Reed to get by. He says, you know what, I'm out of time. Let me just put this one up. Drills it from the baseline. That's an awesome play. And, of course, everybody cheering for South Florida in the memory of Amir Abdur-Rahim. That's a fun win and a tournament play early in the season. Coast Carolina saying coast to coast to win it on the floor of the Chanticleers. That's a fun one. That's a fun one to watch. All right, back to the football craziness we go. This one, it's not going to make sense for everyone. Joseph Williams is going to reel this in. He looks home free. Not so fast, says Ben Knox, as he knocks the ball away and grabs it for the fumble recovery. It looked like Williams was just ready to celebrate, and South Florida pokes it free. I talked about the one play earlier that resulted in a near touchdown for Tulsa. This one does not result in either. A turnover forced. I love it.
I just love the effort play, right? You never give up on the play. I think coaches drill that in your mind in every sport. He's like, nah, I'm going to go get this. And then the spike it down. He deserved every bit of that.
And that was awesome. That was a fun play.
It was certainly fun. Speaking about spiking, that's something that happens in volleyball, but not in this instance.
Bump set spike?
Bump set spike. Nope, not here. This one, you got to watch closely. This is a kick save from Thea Carter of Rice. We'll watch it again, Kyle, because you'll see an even better angle. Here it is. Boom.
She did what?
She just hit the splits and kick saved that ball so that Rice could get it back.
This is not soccer.
But she was fantastic at it. I need that flexibility too. Like my knees don't do that anymore.
How did you do that?
I don't know. I think you should try it.
I will not. But that was a phenomenal play, and I do respect Carter. That's the thing. If you're playing up at the net, a lot of times that's more length. That means you've got size to you. You've got the length at playing at the net. My sister was a middle blocker for North Texas for 4 years. If you're doing that, that means you're not only you have the size advantage, but you have the athleticism to get back over and kick that ball back up in order to get it back into play. That's an awesome play. Very cool.
That's why it had to be our number one play.
Awesome stuff. I love seeing things. If it's a number one play, it needs to be something special. That's something you don't see every day. You see a diving catch, or you see a great touchdown pass, or all these different things every day. You don't see that every day. That's very deserving of being number one.
It certainly was a special play, and this hasn't been a very special regular season for the American Conference, Kyle. I can't believe
sad that it's come to a close.
I know, I'm a little emotional.
Yeah. We got basketball to look forward to.
We have
though.
baskell, and we still have some more football stuff coming up. So you're not getting rid of us yet. I just want to put that out there, and you're not getting rid of me anytime soon.
Never. You've got bowl championship preview coming up here in a couple of weeks, but next week we've got the title game preview, Army and Tulane matching up. We'll go a little more in depth about those two teams. Lots coming our way here in All-American going into the holiday season, and then of course basketball's right around the corner. Conference play in basketball, that is.
There's so much around the corner, and it's all stuff that you don't want to miss. You're definitely going to want to check out that championship preview and all of our All-American content.
Go ahead and subscribe. Click it. Subscribe.
Like,
right
subscribe, all of it, everything. You're closing your computer? That's like a mic drop?
Yes.
Okay, I'll close mine too.
Bang!
That's going to do it for us here on All-American. Maria Trivelpeice alongside Kyle Youmans. Like he said, like, subscribe, all of it. We'll see you back here soon.